Yo guys, what is good? Welcome back on the Uncle Sharma channel. The pre-season beginning gets closer and closer, and the news never stops. So why should we? We are here once again for another episode of FCInterNews, updating you guys on the latest transfer market news that are going on regarding our beloved Inter. But today, actually, we start off on a little bit of a sad note, on a somber note. First of all, we kick off the video by saying rest in peace to an Inter legend, Luis Suarez. And no, this is not the man-biting Uruguayan Luis Suarez. This is Inter's legend, and I mean that, legend. Luisito Suarez, as he was known, passed away today at the age of 88. A player that I have never watched, but that does not mean that he is not a legend, because if you look at his history, a Ballon d'Or winner, the only Spanish Ballon d'Or winner, which is a crazy fact when you think about it. Spain with this rich football history, but this Luis Suarez was one of the biggest, most important players for the Grande Inter of the 1960s, where he won 3 league titles in 63, 65, and 66, but most importantly won 2 European Cups, 64 and 65, under Helenio Herrera. Over 330 appearances for Inter. Played for Sampdoria afterwards, then he went to coaching. But yeah, this guy is an iconic figure for Inter, considered to be one of the best midfielders of all time. And again, as I said, I never watched him play. He's even before our dad's time. He's, probably our granddads remember watching Suarez, if they were watching Inter back then. But these are the guys that, Inter was built on, this real football heritage. So one little moment of silence for Luis Suarez. But anyway, for today's news, we move on to the goalkeeping situation. The goalkeeping situation is the pressing hot topic at the moment. Onana gets closer and closer to Man United. Apparently, his agents met once again with Man United to clarify the last few details. Everything player side is done. Onana wants to move. He's not pushing for the move, but I read today United are offering him a 6.5 to 7 million salary, which is, easily doubling his current salary. He's played under Ten Hag before. It is now Man United. We were laughing at them for a good decade now, but it is actually looking like a good project now. So you can see why he wants to move. It seems like Inter are standing firm on the 60 million euros, which I still think is too low, but at least I hope they stand firm on the 60 million euros, because now that David De Gea has left, that was my hope. David De Gea renewing his contract, maybe at United, where look, it was announced that officially they're not renewing it. He's going to move on as a free agent. That means they need a goalkeeper, and surely they're going to be a little bit more desperate now to sign Onana. But we know that, he's pretty much gone. We have to make peace with that, unfortunately, now. And we know the number one candidate at the moment to replace him is the young Ukrainian Trubin, who, by the way, guys, if you haven't checked it out, this is the Twitter account who I made the episode with, Zoria Londonsk. If you haven't watched it, check it out. If you want to find out more about Trubin, we went in a deep dive, almost 40-minute episode. I think it was a 40-minute episode. Weaknesses, strengths, personality, everything around Trubin that you may want to know from a Ukrainian football expert. And he tweeted, he mentioned this on our episode when we talked about, potential for this actual move. And he said, and we all, I think if you look at Shakhtar in their history, like, they are not an easy team to deal with. And apparently they're slapping on a 35 million euro price tag on the 22-year-old. The source is Sport UA News. I'm going to have to ask Andrew Zoria Londonsk about how good this source is. He only has 2,000 followers on Twitter, but that doesn't really say anything. So I need to check how reliable the source is. But even if it isn't a good source, it sounds about right in terms of Shakhtar. If you look at their history, Fred, Willian, Mudryk recently, like any player that they sell, they always sell for a high fee. Douglas Costa, they never sell, even though this guy has a 1 year left on his contract. They are going to be difficult to negotiate with, but Inter will try to negotiate this down, smaller fee, include a percentage of a future sale, etc., etc. So let's see. I think this is going to be a slowly moving deal, because that's if it's true. Let's say even if it's 35 is not true, let's say 30, between what Inter accordingly want to pay 10 to 15. Because Inter, the reason why they're selling Onana is that they want to make a good capital gain and financial gain for the book, so they don't want to really spend too much on the goalkeeper either. So if this asking price remains at 30, 35, then Inter are going to walk away for sure. And they should. In that case, I would walk away from the deal, speak to Trubin, just like Onana has agreed personal terms with Man United. Trubin has agreed personal terms with Inter, and we've seen how this guy has been moving on the social media. This guy is, dying. He's twerking for us, leaving those side-eye emojis every time Fabrizio Romano tweets. There was an Inter fan who said, come to Inter, and he'd replied with a side-eye emoji again. He loves that emoji. This guy wants us. Just agree with him. Don't renew your contract. We'll sign you next year for free and get the, short-term option in for the season, which looks like at the moment, and the other number one option is Yann Sommer from Bayern Munich. Again, there, Inter yet to agree, as it says, the title here on Sempre Inter term, they agree the terms with the starlet, but yet to convince the Bayern Munich veteran. Sommer wants to be a number one. He's 34 years old, but he still sees himself as a number one, quite rightly. He's still good level goalkeeper. They signed, Bayern signed him from Gladbach last year for around 6 million euros. So they probably want to make their money back, which is, for a 34-year-old goalkeeper is kind of, expensive. So I'm sure Inter would try to negotiate this down. And his wages, depending on, they're talking about 2 to 3 million euros net, that's an expensive deal for a short-term goalkeeper as well. So let's see how that works. I think the Mamardashvili, again, they're asking for 30 plus million Valencia. So I don't think that's a possible route. I can see if none of these work out, if Trubin and Sommer don't work out, I can see, the Italian route, not necessarily an Italian goalkeeper, but as in the Serie A guys, someone like Drongowski, the Spezia goalkeeper, former Fiorentina. He has been relegated with Spezia now, Serie B. So he could be potentially a good, cheap, not a starter. Even when Inter fans were rating him as a starter, never rated him, but now definitely not as a starter. But we still need a number two. We need a number three because we're losing all three goalkeepers. But, Audero, they're talking about another guy who's been relegated with Sampdoria to Serie B. Carnesecchi from Cremonese, or Atalanta actually, was only loaned to Cremonese. So those are the type of names I can see popping up if these deals falls through. But I think first we're going to have to wait to let the Onana deal be confirmed, and then Inter will, I think, go to spend that Onana money on the replacements. And of course, we know as well what else is going to be used for that with that money. And it's not, people keep saying like they're going to use the Onana money on Lukaku. They're going to use the money on a goalkeeper and a striker. But the striker they've chosen right now is Lukaku. But it doesn't mean that they're selling Onana for Lukaku. They're selling Onana, and then they're going to use that money to buy a striker. And at the moment, the number one favorite for Inzaghi, we keep repeating, Inzaghi really, really wants Lukaku, just like he wanted him back last year. And again, he really wants him. The management want him. He wants Inter really, really bad. He's rejecting big money offers from Saudi, from other teams. There was rumors of a Juventus deal coming up today. Corriere dello Sport, absolute BS. That's just Chelsea trying to pressure Inter into raising their offer. So according to reports today, Chelsea rejected a 25 million euro offer from Inter. They won at least 40 million euros. This was confirmed from the English side of things in terms of media, but also from Sky Sport Italia, Di Marzio. Inter have been, they know they can't do a loan unless there's a loan with obligation. They have to make it a permanent buy. Chelsea are not budging this year. They're not as easily bullied this year. Fair play to them. Initial offer of 25, not high enough. 40. I think all the reports are saying that Inter are going to try to push to 30 to 35 maximum, loan with obligation. Pay 5 million this year and 25 to 30 next year. I know this is a very, very expensive deal for Inter in our current situation because, even with Lukaku, according to reports, he's willing to reduce his salary even further to make this move happen. But it's still, loan cost plus, we know how much it cost, basically like 18 to 20 million just last year, just that 1 year loan. It's going to cost yearly. The cost to Inter is going to be about that, like 18 to 20 million euros, depending on the cost of his salary and this buyout. But yeah, the problem I have with Lukaku is I want the situation to be resolved really as soon as possible. Like in reality, we need this to be resolved before preseason starts, which is only in a few days, because I want whoever the striker is needs the full preseason. I want the new striker to come in, get embedded into Inzaghi's playing style, which I think is going to change a little bit, especially with Thuram coming in, Frattesi coming in. I think there's going to be a slightly different dynamic. And if it is Lukaku, we know he needs the preseason. We know it takes him at least a month, 2 months to get into gear. Like, because of his physique, it just takes him a while to get going. But if you can't close this deal in like a week or 2 weeks max, like you need to just forget about it. Like just close it. Tell Lukaku, bro, just accept the Saudi offer. It is what it is. Chelsea are going to make you rot on the bench. It's best for you to accept, and we can move on and try to find good younger alternatives like the Scamacca's out there or the Balogans, which if we sign those guys, this is my opinion, guys, but we cannot expect Scudetto run and deep runs in Champions League, things like that, because especially in Serie A, like when you bring in a guy like Lukaku and he showed it, unfortunately he wasn't able to show it earlier because of his injuries, and he's able to withstand that pressure and take on the mantle as well. Like, when a guy like Lukaku comes in, I know Inter are going to go for Scudetto. If you bring in a guy like Scamacca, Balogun, I'm not so convinced, but I'm happy that at least that will mean a long-term number 9 to work with Lautaro and Thuram, working towards the future. But I'm not as against some Interistia. The final. He missed the chances in the final. If we want to talk about one-off games, then as I've said, when we reacted to that final, what did Lautaro do in the final? Ineffectiveness is just as bad as what Lukaku did, who changed the game in that final. Yes, the Sevilla final, Europa League. Oh yeah, he's the one who scored the own goal. What did Lautaro do in that final in Europa League against Sevilla? Again, nothing. So if you're going to talk about one-off games and talk about these memeable moments, which I know Lukaku is easily memeable, massive joke, Lakaka, all this, the touch, all these kind of things. Yes, he's funny as hell, the biggest meme in football Twitter. But in the Serie A, this guy still bullies. When we saw him the last 2 or 3 months of the season, that's what we need him for. That's what we need, a guy that bullies the Sassuolos, the Lecces, the who's come up from Serie B this year. Frosinone's like, yes, he's a flat track bully, but that's what I want. I want a flat track bully, and he still makes a difference. But a problem is, at 30 years of age, I've always maintained that I don't really want Lukaku. I don't know how he's going to be as he's get older. Like, his physique, his athleticism just is going to dwindle. So let's see what happens with that. But I want that situation to be resolved in the next week or so. And I want to know the answer to that. I don't want this to drag out because it's starting to bore me the hell out. This whole Lukaku situation, it needs to be resolved. And then finally, some positive news on the outgoings. It looks like we're going to be able to sell Facundo Colidio to River Plate in Argentina for around 5 million euros. He is a guy that we spend, people always talk about, like, Inter, don't spend in South America. We spend like 7-8 million on this guy in about 2017, 2018, when we signed him from Boca Juniors, 2017. And it's just never worked out. This guy's 23-year-old now. We send him on loan every season. He's flopped pretty much all of his loans until last season at Tigre with Retegui, which a lot of people thought he was going to come into the deal to sign potentially Retegui. But actually, it looks like River Plate are in the driving seat at the moment. Apparently, Boca Juniors themselves, his former team, were also interested. But yeah, this is another good deal for Inter to help out with the finances. Mulattieri is gone to Sassuolo. This guy's going to go. So Pirola's gone. So things are starting to move on the outgoings as well. So let's see what happens with other guys like Lazzaro, Sensi, etc. Because those could give Inter a little extra budget even to spend on incomings. But yeah, guys, that was it for today. Hope you guys enjoyed that video. Let me know your thoughts down below. Of course, I want you to know Trubin. What you got? What's your prediction on the Trubin deal? I don't want your opinion because we've been talking about Trubin enough in terms of his ability. What do you think is going to happen to Trubin? Who's going to be Inter's number 1 goalkeeper? What's your prediction? And what do you make of the Lukaku situation? Of course, I want to know all about that. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed that. Leave a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. As always,